Hello, my name is Brianna. Welcome to this self-paced class. Thanks so much for taking my self-paced classes. If you are unfamiliar with these, you'll follow my lesson plan that you've downloaded off my website and record your audio before I give you the answers and submit it to me on my website. So, thank you so much for this. I hope it's helpful. Today, we're going to be looking at some phrasal verbs about change. Uh, these phrasal verbs might help you when you're going through a period where lots of things are happening. I just used one going through, so we'll talk about that phrase and we'll talk about lots of other phrases for when you have a period of a lot of change in your life. And phrasal verbs is one thing I get a lot of requests for. Phrasal verbs can be very difficult to understand because you just change the preposition part. So instead of up, if you do out or in or down, that can change the meaning of the phrasal verb a lot, or it could mean the same synonym and you wouldn't even know. So it's one of those things that you have to memorize and practice very hard. So phrasal verbs are a big thing. I get requested from my students. So I thought it would be helpful to go over some of those today. Okay. So phrasal verbs about change. So first I'll ask you some warm-up questions. These are just to get into the topic a little bit. So what season do you think usually has the most change? So is there a particular season where things are changing a lot or more often than usual? Right. And what are some challenging things about changes? Why are changes difficult? And on the other side of that, what is important about change? Why do we need change? And how do you handle change or how do you react to change? Are you good with change or is it difficult for you or is it somewhere in the middle? Okay, so those are our warm up questions. Now let's talk about some phrasal verbs. The structure of this class is that we're going to discuss the meaning of a couple of phrasal verbs and then we'll do some questions with those phrasal verbs. And I'll try to do some practice at the end for you to review. Okay. So, first we have going through a difficult period. So, when you go through something or go through a difficult time, that's when you struggle, but you survive, right? So, you go through something, you survive something. So, if you face tough times and you've come out stronger, you can say, I've gone through this. So, an example might be, I've gone through a difficult year, I'm ready for something new. Right. I've gone through a difficult year and I'm ready for something new. So, could be uh, I've gone through a very difficult year because I moved to a new country. Right. So, that could be something that causes you to a lot of struggle and things to go through. Okay, so that's going through something. And then we have leaving something behind. So when you leave something or someone behind, it means you go to a new place and that person or thing stays there. So an example would be when I immigrated to a new country, I had to leave most of my family behind. Right. So when I immigrated for a new country, I left most of my family behind. So I went to a new country, but most of my family stayed in that country. Okay. So another example here is we could talk about it in a positive way. It might not always be a bad thing. So, another example of using leaving something behind in a positive way. It's time to leave behind the stress of the past year and focus on the future. So, stress is back there. I'm over here. Okay. Now we have our questions. So, I want you to tell me about something difficult that you've gone through. What is something difficult that you've gone through? For this, it could be several different things. It could be a loss of a person or a job. It could be a big change in your life. Uh, it could be something that happened unexpectedly. It could even be preparing for a big test, right? Or a big presentation. So, something stressful or something difficult that you went through. Okay. And have you ever had to leave something behind? So, have you ever gone somewhere and you weren't able to take someone or something with you? So, if you've moved, you've probably had to leave things behind when you move, right? Okay, good. So, those are our first two phrasal verbs. Let me know if you have any questions. Next, we're going to talk about new objectives. So, starting something new, making a goal, things like that. So, our first phrasal verb is to break down, specifically, break down a goal, right? So, if we're breaking something down, we're taking the big thing and making it into smaller things. So, if we're breaking down a goal, we're taking that big goal and we're putting it into smaller goals. So, usually this makes a goal a little easier, a little more achievable because we can go step by step. So, for an example, let's say our goal is to learn English, right? So, that's a pretty big goal, and we'll want to break down that goal into smaller steps. So, our first step might be to learn present simple tense, right? That might be our smaller goal, breaking it down into a smaller step. And then our second goal might be to learn past tense, right? So we'll break it down into smaller and smaller things, and then we can put it back together and make the bigger goal a little bit easier to accomplish, right? So breaking down goals, making that big goal a little smaller, a little bit easier to achieve. Okay. And then we can set out steps or we can set out plans. So if I set out something, then I'm kind of presenting it. So I'm planning and presenting. If I'm setting out steps, that's okay, I've broken down my goal. Now, how am I going to get it? So if my goal is to learn English, and then my smaller goal is to learn present simple tense, I can set out steps to learn present simple tense. So I can set out steps like watch YouTube videos, set out plans like study with a tutor, right? So those could be some steps to achieve my goal that I've broken down. Okay. So that is breaking down goals and setting out plans or setting out steps. So now the questions for these two phrasal verbs. So if you had the goal of losing weight, right? So uh, being a certain number of pounds or kilograms and yeah, kilograms and making that a lower number. So what are we going to do? How are we going to break that goal down? So how would you break down the goal of losing weight? So big goal is losing weight. What are the smaller goals to achieve that? Okay. And the next question, what plans would you set out to have friends at your house for dinner? So, how would you set up plans or set out steps to have your friends over for dinner? So, what are the steps you need to take to have your friends for dinner? So, for this, we need to think about getting our friends to our house, serving them, entertaining them, all of that. Okay. And let me know if you have any questions about those two phrasal verbs, breaking down goals and setting out steps or setting out plans. Okay. So now we have three phrasal verbs about talking about restarting something. So something I used to do and going to do it again, right? So we can talk about getting back into something. So if we get back into something, that means I had a hobby or activity I used to do, and now I'm going to start doing it again. So I did something, I stopped, now I want to do it again. Okay. So I'm going to get back into it. So for me personally, when I was a child, I was a baton twirler and I recently got back into baton twirling. Right. So another example is I did yoga every day for a month and now I want to get back into it. Right. So I did it for a month and I liked it, but I stopped. Now I want to start again. Okay. So our next phrasal verb is to be catch up on things. So if we catch up with somebody or catch up on things, we're going to talk about catching up with somebody later. But if we catch up on things, we're talking about completing a task that we maybe haven't done in a while or doing some work that we maybe haven't done in a while. So one thing I need to catch up on, you can't see it because it's behind the TV back there. But behind that TV is this box that is just like completely full and overflowing. Sorry, it's completely full of junk mail. And there's so many things I just need to sort through, make sure nothing is important, and throw it away. So that's something I need to catch up on. So I need to catch up on things. I need to catch up on my laundry. I need to catch up on sorting through my mail. Right. So these are things I have not done in a while that I really need to. So today, I hope I can catch up on those things. Right. Okay. And similarly, we have catch up with someone. So if we're catching up with someone, that is kind of like we haven't seen them in a while and we don't know what's going on in their life. So we want to get that information on what's going on in their life. So I haven't seen my friend in 3 years. I can't wait to catch up with her on her new job, something like that. Okay. So catch up with things or catch up on things is when we're completing those tasks. Catching up with somebody is when we're learning things about someone we haven't seen in a while. Okay. So mm, let's go ahead and go over some questions with those. So, are there any hobbies or activities that you want to get back into? Is there anything you did in the past that you want to do again? Okay. And have you or are you caught up on all of the work you need to do this week? So, is there any work that's still on your to do list or are you all caught up? And is there anyone you haven't talked to in a while that you would like to catch up with? So, a lot of us have friends and family members that we don't see too often. It's really nice to catch up. Next, we're going to start, or blah, blah, blah. Next, we're going to talk about starting new things. So we just talked about things we used to do and we're starting again. Now we're going to talk about starting something completely new. So our first example is to get into something or take something up or take up something. So if you start a new hobby or start doing something new, you might say you've gotten into it or you've taken it up. So I recently took up painting because it helps reduce my stress, right? Something like that. Or this year, I'm planning on getting into more exercise at the gym. So if we get into something or we take up something, we're starting a new interest. Okay. The next one is to take on challenges. So when we take something on, I always think about like setting it on my shoulders, right? So I'm taking it on. It's almost like I'm carrying it with me, right? So when we take something on, we're carrying that, we're holding that, we're uh, achieving that or getting that for ourselves. So if we take on a challenge, that means we're volunteering to do something that's difficult. So I might take on the challenge of teaching a brand new beginner, right? That can be very difficult sometimes, especially if you don't know their native language. Okay. So taking on challenges, doing something difficult, volunteering to do something difficult. Next, we have to set aside. So usually what we're going to set aside is time or money, right? So we set aside something for something we want to do. So I'm going to set aside an hour every week to learn Japanese, right? I'm going to set aside $300 for my plant hobby, right? Okay, so if we set aside something, we're going to reserve that resource for a specific purpose. So I'm putting it in its own place. I'm giving it its own home so that I know that that is for a specific purpose. So set aside. Okay, so and let me know if you have any questions about those three phrasal verbs: getting into something, taking on, or setting aside. Right, let's do practice. So, when did you take up or get into your favorite hobby or sport? When did you take it up? So, some people, their favorite hobbies they took up when they were very young, and some people just started getting into their new hobby. And so, which one are you? When did you start? When did you take up your new hobby? When did you get into it? Right. And then for taking on challenges, are you thinking about taking on any new challenges? So you probably already took on the challenge of learning English. Are you going to take on any more new challenges? And lastly, it can be really difficult to set aside time for all the things that we want to do. So what is difficult for you to set aside time to do? So is it difficult to set aside time for practicing English? Is it difficult to set aside time for relaxing? Right? What is difficult? Okay, so those are our phrasal verbs: to get into, to take on, and to set aside. Let me know if you have any questions for those. Now we're going to do a little sentence matching activity. So We're going to review the phrasal verbs that we have looked at, and we're going to match them into sentences. So the sentence is missing a phrasal verb, and we're going to pick which one fits the best. Okay, so as we step into the new year, it is important to blank any negative thoughts or habits that hold us back. So, any negative thoughts or habits? What do we want to do to those? Right? Our options are leave behind, get back into, and take on. So, do you want to leave negative thoughts behind? Do you want to get back into negative thoughts, or do you want to take on negative thoughts? Right. And number two, she decided to plan for her fitness journey, including a daily workout schedule and nutrition plan. So she decided to give up a plan, set out a plan, or catch up on a plan. What did she decide to do? Okay, number three, they decided to blank gardening as a relaxing and rewarding hobby. So did they decide to take up gardening, save up for gardening, or catch up with gardening? Okay. Number four, to achieve their financial goals, they regularly get into a portion of their income. Do they draw up a portion of their income, or do they set aside a portion of their income for savings and investments? And number four, after years of smoking, Ali decided to cigarettes to improve his health and well-being. Did he decide to catch up on cigarettes? Did he decide to give up cigarettes? Or did he decide to break down cigarettes? Okay, and last one for this activity, number six. So for number six, before starting a new project, it is essential to a detailed plan outlining the tasks and deadlines. Is it essential to get into a detailed plan, to save up for a detailed plan, or to draw up a detailed plan? Which one do you think is the correct phrasal verb? Okay. Were there any phrasal verb options that we didn't talk about? There were a couple. Let me know if you have any questions about those ones, if there were any where you're like, wait, I don't know what that means. Okay. So I hope you did good on this part. Answers will be at the end. All right, let's do a listening activity. So for this activity, we're going to watch a video, and then we're going to fill in the transcript with the video with the missing words. Okay? So I will go ahead and pause here, or I'll put a screen for you to pause here and watch this video. This video is called 5 Rules of Goal Setting, How to Set Smart Goals. So this woman goes over how we can put different goals in our life and how we can achieve those goals or accomplish those goals, right? So she might be using some of these phrasal verbs in her speaking. She might be using some phrasal verbs that you don't know. That's okay. Just try your best and do what you can to follow along and fill in the missing words here. She talks a lot about setting goals, um, taking chances, and to achieve tangible goals. So if you don't know what tangible means, that means like real, like I can hold it. You know, it's not an idea or something invisible, it's real. All right. And So she also talks about setting yourself on a mission. So when you set yourself on a mission, it's like you have a goal and you've committed yourself to achieve that goal. Right? And she talks about keeping yourself on track. To keep yourself on track means to make sure you are achieving the correct time and effort you need to do that task. So if I'm on track, then I'm not late. I have everything I need done and I'm not stressed about it, right? If I'm off track, I'm behind. I don't have everything done that I need done, and I'm probably stressed out and trying to get too many things done at one time, right? So we want to keep on track with our goals. Okay. So go ahead, do the listening. Let me know if there's any questions you have about this video, and I'll go over the answers in just a second. All right. That is the end of our class. Go ahead and record all of your answers in an audio recording, submit it to me through my website or my email. And I can't wait to listen to your submission and give you some feedback. Okay. So let's talk about the answers here. So, first, I'll go over sample answers for the phrasal verbs. All right. So, um, what is something difficult you've gone through? I've gone through lots of moving around. I think moving is a very difficult thing to go through. You have to deal with all of your stuff. You have to do something with it, whether you throw it out or keep it, and then you have to figure out how to transport it if you keep it, or donating it. You have to figure out an answer for every single item you own, and that is a lot of work. So moving, it can be very stressful. Usually there's a deadline and not enough time, and you also need all of your things for living, right? So that's definitely something difficult I've gone through. I've moved like 6 or 7 times, so I've gone through that a lot, and I don't like it. I really hope I don't have to move for a long time. Okay. And have you ever had to leave something important behind? Yes. So I've had to leave so many of my friends behind. It's been really difficult, to be honest, to move from place to place because I make friends and I find community somewhere and then I don't have that anymore. And then I have to kind of start over and do it again. So I've left lots of friends behind, moving to different cities. I have left friends behind in different countries, and it's difficult. I really don't want to leave those people behind. I uh, really like them and I want to keep hanging out with them. And it's hard to be friends from a distance. It's a lot easier to be friends in person. So, yeah, it's difficult to leave friends behind for sure. Okay. So, for the goal of losing weight, how would you break down that goal? So, first, I would determine how much weight I want to lose and in what timeline. And then, second, I would start with a goal of eating healthier or eating less calories, right? So that my body will start to become smaller. So, uh, make a meal plan and then start exercising. That's another way to break down that goal. So, to start exercising, I might break that down even further and say go for a walk 3 times a week and do weightlifting 2 times a week. Right. So, that could be one way I break down that goal smaller. And everybody has different answers for these. Some people say not to eat before a certain time. Some people say to avoid certain foods. So there's lots of ways you can break down this goal. Right. And what plans would you, I'm going to do steps. What steps would you set out to have your friends at your house for dinner? So if I'm going to set out plans for having friends over, first I need to determine the time in the day. My schedule is impossible to work around. And then I have to look at all of my friends' schedules too if I'm going to have people over. And then, so I would have to set out to find a date. And then I would have to uh, know the number of people who are coming and go shopping. So to set out steps for what I'll buy at the store, how much I'll buy, all of that. And then I'd set out plans for what we would do that evening, if we would play any games. Do I need to make any food in advance? Things like that. Okay. And another thing I might do if I set out those plans is to create an invitation. Usually I just send a text message or something. Um, but everyone invites people. There's so many ways to invite people to a party now that you can really do it any number of ways. So you could make a little invitation and send it digitally, or you could just call them, send a text message, send something in the mail, send an email, Facebook, whatever. There's so many options. Yeah. So that is how I would set out plans for having friends over for dinner. And now we're going to talk about those restarting something. So getting back into something. Yeah. So uh, there's not. I don't know if there's any hobbies that I want to get back into. I recently got back into twirling batons, which is a hobby I used to do when I was a child and haven't done for a long time. But I got an opportunity to perform with baton twirling, so I've recently gotten back into it. And have you or are you caught up with all the work you need to do this week? I'm pretty caught up with all of my work. I'm doing this video right now, which is going to really help me catch up with where I need to be. And all I'll need to do is edit this video, but I'd say I'm on track with everything. And is there anyone you haven't talked to in a while that you would like to catch up with? Oh, I have so many people I would like to catch up with. I'm really, really bad at um, calling and texting my friends just because that's called like keeping in touch, right? I'm very bad at keeping in touch. So I really should catch up with all of my old friends a lot more than I do, and my family as well. I should catch up with them. My father just called, so I could catch up with my parents, which was nice. Uh, but yeah, I have a lot of people to catch up with. Okay. And next we have are getting into something or taking up something. So when did you first take up or get into your favorite hobby or sport? So I'll talk about baton twirling. I first took up baton twirling, I think when I was like 6 years old or something. There was a baton for very low price in a thrift store or used item store. So I got a used baton, very cheap, and I started playing with it, and I really liked trying to make it spin and everything. So I started taking classes, and that's how I took up baton twirling, and that's how I got into it. Right. And are you thinking about taking on any new challenges? Yeah, I'm taking on a new challenge right now. These self-paced classes are a new challenge for me, and I'm still in like the testing phase. So I hope you like them. Please give me feedback. It's a big challenge for me to take on. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and I haven't uh, been able to figure out the logistics exactly how I want. So we're trying out something, and we'll see if it works. It's a big challenge to take on for sure. And what is difficult for you to set aside time for to do? Oh, gosh. It's difficult for me to set aside time to do a lot of things. Cleaning, doing laundry is one thing that's really difficult for me to set aside time to do. I don't enjoy doing my laundry. I don't like dealing with all of my clothes. So it's very difficult for me to set aside time to do the laundry and deal with all of those clothes. Okay. Next, we're going to go over the vocabulary activity. So this was the fill in the blank sentences. All right. So as we step into the new year, it's important to leave behind any negative thoughts. Number two, she decided to set out a plan for her fitness journey. She decided to set out a plan for her fitness journey. Number three, they decided to take up gardening as a relaxing and rewarding activity. They decided to take up gardening. Right. And number four, to achieve their financial goals, they regularly get to achieve their financial goals, they regularly set aside a portion of their income. They regularly set aside. Right. After years of smoking, Allie decided to give up cigarettes. Give up. So that one means to stop. That one's to stop. Right. And number six, before starting a new project, it is essential to draw up a detailed plan outlining the tasks. Draw up. So that means to create, basically. Okay. Okay. And finally, we're going to do the answers to the listening. So I hope that this video wasn't too difficult. I know she used a lot of big vocabulary and some other phrasal verbs that we didn't go over. So I hope that you were able to figure out everything. And please, please, please ask me questions in your recording if you have any questions. Great. So let's go over the answers. Would you set off on a cross-country trip without a map, a GPS, or even a clear destination? I'm just going to skip to the parts with the blanks. You might have an interesting adventure. That's why it's so important to set goals. They help you take control and guide you along your journey. One of these things is to set goals that genuinely motivate you, that doesn't make you feel very excited. Mhm. Before you make any real progress, analyze why it's so meaningful to you. Next rule is to set SMART goals, SMART, all capital. In essence, goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. SMART goals work best because you can evaluate your progress objectively. Another rule is to put your goals into writing. When you write down your goals, use the words I will. The fourth golden rule is to make an action plan. By writing out individual steps and crossing each one off your list, this is especially important if your goal is big and demanding. The final rule is to stick with it. Goal setting is an ongoing activity, not just a means to an end. Set reminders to keep yourself on track and make time to review your goals regularly. Okay, so those are the answers to all of the listening. Please, again, let me know if you have any questions on anything she said or anything you didn't understand about that listening activity. And I hope that you enjoyed this self-paced class. I hope it was informative and helped you learn. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.